So we all want the truth, or we want to get closer to it, but with all the competing ideas and all the things out there that says it's the research, it is really hard to know what is closer to the truth and what is further away. So let me help today in a small HR way. We are going to explore the research on a bunch of hot 2025 topics. That's all coming up right now. Hi there, I'm Andrea Adams. This is the HR Hub, and on this show, we talk about anything related to HR. Please subscribe to the show or podcast. Keep learning from my guests. So today, my guest is Dr. Catherine Connelly. I found her by asking Chat GPT for an expert on the future of work. She's an HR professor and a researcher who looks at workplace behavior, employee well-being, and diversity. During an earlier call, she clearly demonstrated her command of the research. So I'm really excited to explore some controversial topics with her today. Hi, Catherine. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks so much for having me.
Well, thanks so much for coming on. This is going to be exciting because, you really did in that call have such a command of, what the research says. But it is certainly relevant to this topic to understand your background. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're qualified to reflect on the research?
Sure, happy to. So I've been a professor at the DeGroote School of Business at McMaster University for a little over 20 years now. It kind of feels weird to say that, but I started in 2004, and since then I've been doing research nonstop. So research is my favorite thing to talk about. I'm delighted to be here, and I can tell you about my own research and also what's going on in the field. So there's lots of interesting developments all the time about pretty much every HR topic.
Yeah, it feels like that, and it's just hard to stay on top of it all. So we will dive into just a small segment. And hey, people out there, if you really like this, if you enjoy this discussion, which I think you will, let me know because maybe we'll do it again. Okay. So, first topic is around hybrid work in Canada. There does seem to be a shift towards hybrid work, both from fully remote and from fully in office. What really does the research say about the connection between hybrid work and organizational success?
Right. So this is a fascinating area of research. And to me, the most interesting thing is just how it's changed over the years, right? Because if you go back even 10 years to find one person in an office who is doing even just a few days working from home, this was revolutionary. And that was considered remote, just to do 1 or 2 days a month. And that would be a whole separate category of worker, and you'd have to have separate policies for this unicorn of an employee who is doing something so revolutionary. And now that's kind of everybody. So, there's been such huge changes in the technology. And so now the issue is it's not just 1 or 2 employees, it is so many. And it is so many employees in so many sectors. And within a sector, it is typically every organization doing exactly the same thing. And so there might have been a brief moment where having hybrid employees or giving people the ability to work from home was a competitive advantage. And not anymore. And it's because your competitor is doing pretty much the same thing. So to keep your employees, you definitely have to offer at least what your competitors are offering, but it's not going to be special anymore.
Does that mean automatically that it's connected to success? Because, I hear both sides that people are both more productive when they're working from home. And we were so productive during COVID. And then I hear so many other people and often business leaders saying that remote work and maybe even hybrid work is detrimental to the organization.
Yeah. So much of this depends on your middle managers. And this is a group of employees that gets so little credit. They are
Yeah.
squeezed from both
Yeah.
sides.
Yeah.
And so if you have a cadre of middle managers who manage well by results
Hmm.
and who are effective at those touch points and staying connected to the people who report to them, it's totally fine,
Hmm.
right? If you don't, things will fall apart. And so something a lot of people will say is that remote work is good for you and your job, but maybe not great for your career.
Oh, yes. Yes, I've heard that one too.
Yeah, and there is some truth to that. So if you have an organization that's really good at recognizing people based on their actual contributions, then being remote wouldn't hold somebody back, especially if they have really good internal processes. But if it's a type of place where really it matters more on face to face, being visible, people knowing who you are, connecting with
Hmm.
you on a personal level. So if those personal connections have become important, then that's the sort of thing that would hold someone back. And so from an organizational standpoint, the issue becomes around agility and being able to pivot to something new.
Hmm.
And to do that effectively, often those personal connections start to matter a little bit more. Because if you have trust between people, they're more likely to share information with each other.
Yeah.
And the organization as a whole becomes a little bit more agile and can take on new challenges a little bit more easily.
Hey, business owners, executive directors, are people stresses or challenges getting in your way? Imagine managing your people issues smoothly, addressing, better yet, dealing with employee problems before they're ever a big problem, adapting to all the changes in employee rules, and doing all of this easily. I can deal with your HR challenges so they're resolved. With me, you'll get the right things done, build a strong team, and create a workplace where the right people want to be. Your business deserves to thrive without a lot of HR hassle. I'm here to help you make that happen. With my assistance, you can focus on business growth, supported by a strong team. Take a first step towards a better business today. Reach out and let's chat. Visit thehrhub.ca and let's begin transforming your people challenges. Okay, moving on from remote work. What does the research say about skills-based hiring? This is a really hot topic these days, where we should hire based on skills, not based on degree.
Mhm.
Uh, what does the research say about this?
Yeah, so that's another interesting issue. And again, so much depends on what the job actually is. And so I think
Mhm.
job analysis has sort of fallen out of favor, but
Mhm.
it's really important for something like this. And
Mhm.
so
Yes.
if it is the type of job where somebody can, if they have the skills, they can do it, and that's all they will ever need in that job, great. Hire based on skills. You can look for somebody who's done a boot camp. You can look for somebody who has maybe grown into that job internally, and you're set. That's great. Um, where it becomes more complicated is if maybe the job itself is not so well defined, or if it's
Mhm.
the type of job where people are going to have to adapt over time or
Mhm.
deal with a lot of uncertainty. And if that's the case, then you might start looking for someone who has maybe more big picture
Mhm.
understanding. And
Mhm.
that's where looking for the specific degree or diploma would be more important. So I'm thinking, for example, with like a computer science type thing. So if it's, you know exactly the software that they are going to need to do, that's not going to change over the life course of this need in the organization, you're kind of done, as well as some other checks for soft skills and whatever else you
Mhm.
might need immediately. But if you think that, okay, you're using this environment now, but it might shift to something new, or you want somebody who's going to grow with the organization over a longer period of time, maybe take on new types of programming environments, okay, then you would need somebody with the computer science skill set and that kind of degree, not someone with another type of degree who's done the boot camp.
I mean, when you think about that, like, and the pace of change, and now we've got AI, and Are there any positions where they're stable enough that you could do skills-based hire, just purely skills-based hiring?
Depends how long you need that person for. And also, organizations need to be realistic about the training and development that they can offer for people, right? So I think especially lately, a lot
Yeah,
of training budgets are being cut,
yeah,
and people are really looking for somebody who already has everything that they need to know.
yeah.
But if realistically they think they could devote some of their training budget to upskilling people on a continuous basis, then great. Just find people who have what they need. And if you're confident that they could learn additional skills based on the fact that they already learned some, then you're probably fine, right? So
Yeah.
the best boot camps are skills based, but they also will focus on getting people to learn how to learn the next skill, right? And so they will de emphasize this idea of like a cookbook approach and just do this, 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 and then but they'll really
Okay.
emphasize, okay, this is how you Google that. And web developers will tell you, I mean, this is how they learn how to adapt with everything anyways. So yeah.
So,
So the best boot camp type skills type thing would include the learning new skills, but not to the same extent as someone with a 4-year degree or a master's degree in that. And
mhm.
so, yeah, I do worry sometimes that the emphasis on the skills-based aspect is very short term and
Yeah.
doesn't give enough appreciation to kind of this understanding how to learn aspect, that it's like a almost like a more permanent skill set or ability to learn new things that you
Hmm.
get from the degree programs, and especially from like a master's program or something like that.
I also worry that just focusing on the combination of focusing on skills and cutting training and development. And so then you're left with this employee who may not be able to do a whole lot more or equipped to do a whole lot more.
Yeah.
Okay, next topic. And I know this one is of interest to you. AI. We had those hard lessons with, I think it was H&M and Amazon, where they discovered that their recruiting systems were favoring based on biases. Have we resolved those ways that previous versions of AI were perpetuating human biases or not?
Yeah, so not at all.
Not at all.
No,
Not at
not even
all.
close. No.
Oh
So
no.
so the fundamental issue with many of these AI tools is that it's based on an algorithm that's been trained on who are your existing employees. And
Hmm.
so if you already have a lot of employees who are lacrosse players named Matt, then in the application cycle, the algorithm is going to prioritize even small details like the guy's name is Matt and he plays lacrosse, right? And so you were ending up with too homogenous recruiting results, right? And so the initial research that was auditing this was looking at how racialized groups were affected, and so there were clear indications that this was a problem. Um, this has not been fixed in terms of other equity-seeking groups. So, for example, people with disabilities, people
Hmm.
from other racialized groups, LGBTQ plus groups, like you name it. So I think there's a bit of a sense that, oh, if you use AI, the technology is impartial. And so they'll come up with something fair because there's no human biases. But the problem is the biases are baked into the algorithm. And it's not that
Hmm.
the algorithm is trying to be biased, but it's been trained on the existing sample. So
Hmm.
a separate issue is that AI is also used in new recruitment and selection tools, things like chatbots and automated video interviews, things like that. So, I mean, it's amazing technology,
Hmm.
huge time saver. right? So
Mhm.
that's great. But there are issues around, say, you're using a screen reader because you have a visual disability, or maybe you have issues with dexterity. And so that might affect how you interact with one of these AI enabled assessment games that really
Mm.
emphasize speed. So it's just an issue where the technology is advanced ahead of some of our maybe sober second thought that could be used to maybe intervene more carefully in that process. And the issue is sometimes companies will just buy an off the shelf product
Mhm.
and think, oh, okay, we're done. But really, they also need to audit the results of what this product is getting them. And so they can either hire a third party provider who can audit the effectiveness of their AI tools that they're using, or they could do a rudimentary one themselves by sending a applicant through their system that they know would be qualified, but is maybe um, not the prototypical applicant that an algorithm might favor.
I just think we're going to see more of those cases in the news of, I don't know about if travesty is the right word, but where AI has run amok in terms of these types of things.
Well, so I think we'll definitely see those, but it's also worth keeping in mind that people are also biased. And so
Yeah.
there are also rogue staffers who are implementing all of their biases anyways.
No. Yeah.
And there's also structural biases that just kind of tend to make organizations more homogenous anyways. So
Mhm.
I think the idea is to just have better processes and structures in place, and then you
Mhm.
can check on how you're doing if the
Mhm.
organization's motivated to reduce biases, and then just kind of check to see how they're doing, whether or not they're using an AI tool or anything like that.
Mhm. I've had people comment on my posts where they proudly tell me about their biases but I mean, it's subtle. It's like, I do it this way. And I'm like, I do it this way. I'm like, oh, I wonder how that's working for, the applicants. But anyway, okay.
Well,
Yeah. They're out there. Yeah. Next question. So employee experience also continues to be a focus. What does the research actually say about the connection between creating a great employee experience and organization success?
okay. So I think there's far too much emphasis on things like lunchtime yoga, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Or like you say, like foosball table in the break room, or even like fun holiday lunch, something like that. Um, but the the things that employees care about way more than that have to do with how fairly they are treated in the workplace. And
Mhm.
it's far more fundamental than these, I would say, more superficial things that a company could
Mhm.
provide. Right. And
Mhm.
so there's the distributive justice in terms of, okay, am I being paid fairly for the work that I'm putting in comparison to my coworker?
Mhm.
So do I feel like I'm working harder than them and we're paid the same? Unfair, and they don't care how many foosball tables there are. Um, or do they feel that everybody that okay, somebody else is maybe paid more, but they work so much more and they're okay with it, right?
Mhm.
So distributive justice. There's also procedural justice in terms
Mhm.
of do people feel that the processes that are being used to determine their compensation are transparent and that they
Mhm.
can appeal and that are based on real information that is correct, and that if there's ever a dispute, then the organization looks at all sides of this. Like this process is often even more important than the outcome. And so
Mhm.
people will
Yeah.
look at this process and think, okay, if this process is okay, then yeah, I believe the outcome, and I feel okay. I've been treated fairly, and so on. And then there's also the interpersonal justice. So do people feel like they're being treated with respect?
Mm,
And
yeah.
people know, right? And so, and it's not just like using people's pronouns or epithets or getting their name right. Like people know if they're being treated like a
Yeah.
peer or like someone who's disposable.
Mm-hmm.
And then also the last bit would be, do people feel as though they are being told information relevant to them before other people find it? And so that's also part of respect. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so these are like fundamental things that you can't, if these are not in place, you can't make up for it with, I don't know, some kind of employee lunchroom or free food
Yeah.
for everybody or anything like that,
Yeah.
right? Because these are fundamental. And a lot of employees, they would much rather be treated fairly and have a Spartan workplace that doesn't have any of the frills or the bells and whistles, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So if we're defining employee experience as um, kind of the fairness with which they're treated, then that is fundamental. But if you define the employee experience as having a nice workplace and kind of a few kind of extras available to people, um, then that's not as fundamental.
Talk about touch points in employee experience. And you're basically saying that these superficial touch points don't matter nearly as much as those basic ones that um, are almost part of just human nature.
Yeah. And so a lot of it goes back to those middle managers, often
That-
underappreciated. But yeah, if they are treating people disrespectfully, the rest of it doesn't matter, right?
Mhm.
People will quit. Or if they can't quit, they'll just do a little less.
Yeah, I'll sometime if we ever do this again, I'm going to ask you about toxicity. Remind me.
Oh, wow. I can tell you a lot about that. So my um, PhD student who is now graduated, she's a prof at University of Regina. Now, her dissertation was on toxic positivity in the workplace. And so,
Oh,
yeah, she did such a good job on it. So, yeah, you could talk to her separately. Her name's
about
Ali Lefko. Yeah, she's great. So,
toxic positivity. Okay, now you left us with that. You have to give us like, okay, what is toxic positivity?
yeah, so it's basically dismissing negativity and overemphasizing the positive. And so basically, if your coworker says to you, well, I think I'm going to lose my job. I've been doing really poorly, and I'm really worried about this. Somebody says, "That's okay. You don't need a job anyways. Just you only live once, and you'll be fine." Like that's really
Yes.
positive, and it's not
Yeah.
helpful at all.
Yes. I mean, reframing has its place, but that's over the top.
Yeah,
Um, there's
yeah.
there's definitely some tension there.
So
Yeah.
what Ali's research was finding, and we're following up on this with some experiments in the lab, but people are not so upset about the positivity, right? Because they
Mhm.
interpret that as you're trying to be nice, but
Yeah.
they really don't like this dismissing negativity. So,
Mm,
and you can imagine, right? Like if somebody says, like, I didn't get this promotion, or um, my cat is sick, or any of these negative things. Like if somebody's telling you that, they feel strongly that it's a problem.
mhm,
So to just have that dismissed, it's very invalidating, right?
mhm,
It's toxic.
mhm. Hmm. So many questions about that toxic positivity. Toxic positivity. Look forward to something about that in the future, people. Okay. Well, that is all we have time for. If people want to find you, where should they find you?
So they can find me on LinkedIn. They can look for Catherine Connelly at McMaster University, and I'm happy to friend them on LinkedIn. They can look at my webpage. It's connellyresearch.com, or they can find me at the experts page at McMaster University.
Excellent. Okay. Put links to that in the show notes.
Sure.
Well, thanks, Catherine. That was awesome. You people out there, if you would like us to do another one like this, what does the research say? Maybe we'll cover toxic positivity. Catherine is clearly knowledgeable, so you should let us know. I did an episode on evidence-based HR, and a link to that's right here. Thanks for watching out there, and we'll catch you next time.